Thanks for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. My guest is Ken LaCorte. Ken is a former executive at Fox News. About 2 decades you were there, Ken. Mm-hmm. And you also were an editor of the Fox News website. You're now launching your own network, that being KenLaCorte.com, and also your YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me, Ken.
Good to be here. How are you, Charles?
Good, Ken. So we were talking a little bit off the air about our respective backgrounds, and we brought it to the point of looking at where conservative media is today. I consider myself to be a conservative host, formerly a radio host. And, I want to maybe pick up on that, but also bring it to a particular situation that I contacted you about earlier, and that is the business of censorship of conservative opinion, specifically this phenomena of a censorship of the name of the so-called whistleblower from the media, that being related to the Trump impeachment. And what the heck is going on with that? I mean, it seems like almost a complete blackout. It's like almost Soviet style, that even to the point where yesterday it came out that Senator Rand Paul's comments on the floor of the U.S. Senate, where he mentioned not the name of a particular person that we shall not name, and not in relation to this person being the so-called whistleblower, but just in a context of how this whole business of the Ukraine agenda happened, and that has been edited off of YouTube and Facebook because of this person's name. You're someone who has a long background in media, so you have an inside view of this. What's going on here, Ken?
So let me take a step back and let's put it in a little bit of recent historical context. 10 years ago, people who thought that the media was biased to the left, which most national news media is, they saw the internet as kind of the savior and salvation of free thought and of open discourse of ideas. And what we've seen over the last, I would say it's probably 3 to 4, maybe a few more years on that, is primarily the left has used cancel culture, has used a various number of tactics to basically silence their opponents. Now, when we grew up in the 80s, it was really on the other side. It was churches not wanting the library to have naughty books or things like that, or in certain school districts they would say no, you can't teach evolution. I mean when conservatives or the whole Red Scare, which was half 2/3 true, but 1/3 overblown if you said certain things. So there was a clampdown of speech on the other side. What we've seen now, though, is it's definitely now one of the primary weapons of the left. They own most of the on-air type of outlets, and to be honest, most of the big platforms that we consider kind of free speech zone, they're almost down to an entity, are based within 5 miles from where I'm sitting, maybe 10 miles. I'm right near the bridge in right outside of San Francisco, and you've got 25-year-old woke kids who are deciding what can and can't be said and what will be elevated and reduced on Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. So they come up with very ambiguous terms and conditions that can mean anything. And we've seen this. BuzzFeed will go see, that guy said a gay slur on his show. They will then, BuzzFeed's done this a lot. Vox has done this a lot. Then they go up to the outlet, go up to the Facebook or the Twitter and say, hey, this person's violating the law. And then you see a lot of what I consider very selective takedowns. I mean, it's at the point where a Facebook executive said, you can say bad things about Alex Jones on Facebook, but we'll zap you if you say anything good about him. It's not even him posting, it's you talking about it. So flash forward now to this instance, which is the whistleblower, so-called whistleblower in impeachment. So there are two national narratives. One narrative is you had this guy who heard Trump being Trump, and he does his thing, and he was being illegal, and this person is a true whistleblower and said, I can't stand this, and he released this information, and he deserves the anonymity and protection that a whistleblower is given. That's kind of the side of the left, and almost all of the news media, and certainly almost all of the social media, I think, except for Twitter in this instance. On the right, there's a very different narrative. Their narrative is the CIA and NSA and FBI had been paying way too much attention to the Trump campaign since even before he was elected. The FBI starts an investigation based on very flimsy, one dude in a bar on the other side of the world who'd never even met Donald Trump said something, and they were listening to Flynn's phone calls. They were putting people inside. They had electronic surveillance on this campaign. And now there was a guy who worked in the White House, but for the CIA, who had been accused earlier of leaking out some conversations with the president, not illegal conversations, but things that he thought would embarrass him. They shipped, and he was also reported to have been talking with another guy early on in the first weeks of the Trump administration, saying, we need to get rid of this guy. We need to make him go. And that guy he was talking to, coincidentally now, works on Adam Schiff's staff.
Right.
This CIA analyst was kicked out of the White House and sent to Langley, and in his off hours wrote up this whistleblower complaint that then became the basis of an impeachment of a president. And so that's the other side. So literally now you have almost all media refusing to say his name or give any background information on him. I did on Facebook. They pulled me first temporarily and then officially completely off. I think they thought some other bad things were going on, which just was not true. I was pulled off of Facebook. I was pulled off of Instagram. I had videos that were taken off of YouTube. And finally, Google sent us notes saying, we're demonetizing certain parts of certain pages. You can't run our ads on those pages that mentions this person's name. And flash forward to now this week, when you literally have, you can go see Hitler speeches of him talking in Munich, but you can't watch a U.S. senator talking on the floor of the U.S. Senate last night because of YouTube's terms and conditions. So it's a different world. I think that this is a small sliver of what's happening in a much larger sense. And that larger sense really, really bothers me, because they're getting a lot of low-hanging, smaller conservative outlets and killing them completely. And they'll always find some little thing where they went over a line. Last week, Zero Hedge had close to 750,000 Twitter followers. And they were writing about the coronavirus, and they published some information but it was information that they found online of a researcher in China that they said, hey, maybe this person should be asked of what's going on. That was enough to get them killed. I had 3.5 million followers on Facebook.
Incredible. I
can't even get an email back from Facebook saying what we did wrong, or is there any way to fix it? That's what kind of power they have.
No, they do, and I mean, I've already been told, even though I've only been at this for maybe less than a year, and I don't have any money, but that I've been shadow banned for various reasons, and I've had strikes put against me. Ironically, because with the claim that I engaged in hate speech, assumedly because I had said something anti-Semitic, putting aside the fact that I'm a devout Jew who is pro-Israel. Never mind that.
If Ben Shapiro can be a Nazi, you can be an anti-Semite.
I guess so. Right. And but somebody out there doesn't like something I'm saying, and they just wanted to have me zapped. I mean, it probably might have been someone who's Jewish. I don't know, because I'm very conservative, and that might PO some very ultra-liberal Jews.
There are organized people who will sit and tattle on you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's come down to. It's sort of like turning people in for not being politically correct. Here you are, someone who I think a red flag. And I want to zero in a little bit on the business of this particular so-called whistleblower, because I think that maybe I'm putting on a tin hat here. I don't know. But even based upon what you just described with regard to who this person is and what they had access to, It seems to me that there's a real circling of the wagons around keeping this person out of any discussion. Because if this person is exposed, and if we do find out publicly who he is and or she and what they're about, then that's going to blow the whole lid on this rotten, impeachment agenda, and even more deeply on the whole business of what President Trump, I think, accurately describes as the deep state.
I mean, certainly the left will make the argument that it doesn't matter what, and there is an argument to be made there. It doesn't matter who the whistleblower is or what he did. This should be based on what Trump did or didn't do. Just like if there was a bad cop and arrested you for something, we shouldn't be talking about him. We should be talking about your behavior. On the other hand, it's really fair to say if the cops were following Charles around 24/7 and they eventually got him on a pretty minor offense that they then hauled him into the courts for, that would be part of your defense is, wait a second, this was a setup from the get-go. And look, I think the Republicans have a very strong case to be made on that. This president, this is the first time we have had we have a highly weaponized, highly accurate intelligence gathering capabilities that has grown up ever since these phones came out, and they figured out how to now track me 24/7, how to have an audio that they can turn on or off at the whims of a FISA court. And everything that you type into your computer now can be seen by analysts. That is a surveillance state that we've never seen in the history of the world. And you combine that with a surveillance organization with a lot of holdovers who don't like the new president. Man, if this becomes the new normal, we live in very weird times. I mean, look at us right now. We're two adults.
Right.
We can't say the name of a guy that everybody in Washington, D.C. knows. And we're afraid to say that because the powers that be might zap this up.
Out there. I mean, most of our listeners to this program know his name. I mean, it's out there, and yet, I think that Sebastian Gorka was taken off the air as well for mentioning it.
I mean, it's just that's the kind of crap that happened in the Soviet Union in 1979.
And this, to me, is something that we should look at as emblematic of, as you say, a much bigger, broader problem: the weaponizing of our so-called intelligence, or what Professor Michael Glennon of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy is called the double government. He wrote a fantastic book. I interviewed him about a year ago. You should get him on. He doesn't. He's very liberal, and he's a Senate. He's a chief counsel to the Obama administration. He doesn't agree with my take on his book, but his book lays out the rise of the intelligence state, starting with the National Security Act of 1948, signed by Truman. And there were people back then warning the country about it, and the rise of the CIA, the NSA, all of these agencies and their intercoordination, the fact that they're operating a lot off the books with unapproved monies from Congress, and that they have millions of people and businesses and affiliates all over the world. That here they are, what I think Trump calls the deep state, and they're protecting themselves by it's pretty. And to my way of thinking, the business of the so-called whistleblower is a very open example of that. One that should be amplified for that reason, because if this is the tip, this is the head of the snake. If this is exposed, it's going to show the whole rotten mess.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm unclear on is this, how organized is it from up top? Is it various groups within these entities? I mean, look, I'm a believer that there are a lot of bad people who are trying to do bad things to the United States, and we need a healthy intelligence. But this is going to be one of those, right now the Democrats are happy because it's holdovers inside of these agencies going after Trump. But at some point, somebody's going to release Bernie Sanders's emails or his audio conversations where he says something bad, and we're not going to know. Did that come from the Russians? Did that come from? Did somebody hand that over to Julian Assange, or was it the FBI working for Trump now? And this is going to be one of those issues where you see the two halves of America changing their hats. They loved. They loved drones Republicans loved drones under Bush, under Obama. They were like, well, he's sure killing a lot of guys. Now they love him again. It's going to be one of those that will be a bipartisan.